Another good program from Jeff Nippard. Welcome back to the channel, guys. My name is Joe. First time here, make sure you hit the subscribe button down below. Really appreciate it. Hope your workouts are going really well too. And I'm back finally with a new review, and it's with a good one, a big one, and it is Jeff Nippard's Powerbuilding 2.0 program. And a lot of us have been waiting for him to release this one. He released his phase one Powerbuilding program quite a long time ago, honestly, now. And this is a stepping stone into, from the first one. So you could consider the first Powerbuilding program he designed as phase 1. This is phase 2, and he's planning for a phase 3, a third Powerbuilding program as well. So each one is a stepping block from the other one. So that first one is more of a base, setting up that base, getting a good mix of strength and hypertrophy from it. This one now, phase 2, it is focused on more muscle building. There's still a good strength development side of it, but there's a little bit more volume, so there's a little bit more emphasis on that hypertrophy side of it overall. And I'll go over that in just a little bit. But in all, guys, it is an excellent program. So getting into it here, now, like with all other Jeff Nippard programs, you get quite a bit within not just the program, but a very extensive booklet. And you actually get a couple things. So there's also another one, a get ready manual that he has here. So with this one, it is actually kind of like a checklist sort of thing. So there's a disclaimer, you can ignore that one. But you can see in the table of contents here, he goes over why he wanted to write this program, his overall theory and preferences and principles behind this program, the advantages of power building and also some of the disadvantages of it. You know, there's a lot of advantages to a power building. You can develop strength and hypertrophy at the same time, and a good amount of it, and it can help actually kind of recover a little bit better from a strict power building or strict bodybuilding program. And there's some research or some evidence to suggest that bodybuilders, for example, can benefit in terms of building extra amounts of muscle later on by doing a power building type program like this. There are some disadvantages to it, of course, which he explains, which is that at the end of the day, because you're doing a mix of both power building and hypertrophy, you're not going to be optimal in either one. You're not going to build an optimal amount of muscle or an optimal amount of strength. So that's just something to keep in mind with this type of the program. So if you're looking for optimal in either one, you need to stick to a strict program for either one of those. He also then goes over into overall getting ready checklist. So basically the type of equipment you may need, also some basic nutrition or diet tips, how much protein you need to consume, needing to be in a caloric surplus, or at least a caloric maintenance, but preferably a caloric surplus to actually help with gaining in muscle and strength, because that is ultimately what you need to be in, and a few other things. So it's a nice little checklist or booklet here, mini little booklet that he includes with this. So now getting back into the actual main booklet itself. So with this one, again, basic disclaimer. So you can see the table of contents here. Again, he goes over. First thing here is the key terms, okay? And I'm going to go over just this stuff briefly because it's almost identical, basically, to all his other programs, the booklets that you get from this. And I went into detail in my past reviews for his other programs. What you get in the booklet, like I said, it's essentially the same thing. It's the same key terms. It's the same about this program. Well, this about program. It's the same type of principles, but it's tailored specifically to this program because it's a power building program. He goes into detail what the program is, how to follow it, why he designed it this way. He also goes into a bit more detail about the program, specific principles like intensity and volume, stuff like that, later on after he shows you the program itself. And I'll also mention that in just a minute. But after this, it's also an FAQ, a pretty extensive one, so pretty much any question that you think you might have. And he also goes into, again, a warm-up that you can follow, a good warm-up. He goes then into the program itself. We'll get into that in just a second. But after that, he goes into an explanation of the program, why it's designed the way he did, the principles he's followed, and the science behind it, the research, and he references all of that research as well. And then he goes into training variables. So he specifically talks about volume, intensity, the RPE scale, how to follow that, and how to progress, what progressive overload is, and how to measure that and how to follow that throughout this program. And then, of course, he also provides an extensive list of video demonstrations for every exercise that is in this program, along with all the exercise substitutions that he lists. And speaking of which, he also provides an exercise substitutions list. Okay, and it's great that he provides that. It's a good list. Okay, but again, like I've explained in the past, there's no real explanation on how to make these substitutions, which is why I have made a video explaining how to make those substitutions on this channel. So overall, guys, that is about the booklet. It's, like I said, it's pretty much the same. It's a good booklet. I like everything that he does explain. He gets to the point, unlike me in a lot of my videos. But you're going to know pretty well how to follow this program, and you're not really going to be lost. So let's get into the program itself. Now, in this here, you actually are given two programs, one that's 4 times a week and one that is 5/6 days a week. You can choose either one. You don't have to follow both, okay? It depends on what you're able to do. If you're only able to train 4 days a week, he gives you that option, okay? If you're able to do it more than that, 5/6 days a week, he also gives that option. Now, one thing to mention here, actually two things. First is the reason that it's 5/6 days a week is because of the split in that program. So on the 4 days a week one, it is split up in a way that in the odd weeks, from week 1, week 3, so on, it's a full body split. 4 days a week, okay? And then you're given an optional 5th day, which can be seen as an arm pump day, okay? But you're not required to do it or anything like that. Just follow those 4 main full body days, and you'll make good progress with those. In that other program, 5/6 days a week, it is following where you have the same type of split where it's 4 days or full body split, and then you have that arm pump day, which is the 5th day. There we go. And so it's assuming here that it is what you're going to be following. And then in the even weeks after that, this is the same thing in the 4 days a week. In the even weeks, in the 4 day week, it follows an upper lower type split. So that is the hypertrophy focus. The odd weeks is more of a strength focus. The even weeks are a hypertrophy focus. In the 5/6 days a week one, it is a push-pull legs focus, or type of split, or actually a lower push-pull. That's the order that he follows it in. And you're doing that 6 days during the week. Okay, so odd weeks are 5 days a week, and then the even weeks are 6 days a week. Jeez. Yeah, I can count, I swear. So that is the way he split this up. It gives you those two options. Now, the other thing that I mentioned that I want to talk about here is the differences between a 4-day split and a 5 or 6 day week split in terms of that type of frequency. Is there really an advantage to one or the other? And what the research suggests from such as Brad Schoenfeld et al. And others is that not really. The basic premise here is that whether you're doing 4 days a week or 5 or 6 days a week, it doesn't really matter which one you do, okay? It doesn't really provide an advantage to do more days or higher frequency, as long as, and this is very important, as long as volume overall is accounted for. Okay, so that means if you're doing 4 days a week, all right, you need to account for that volume. The volume overall will need to be higher on each of those days versus if you're doing it 5 or 6 days a week. Okay, so the 4 times a week, the total volume needs to match at least the volume that you're doing on 5 or 6 days a week, the way that is split out over those days. Okay, and in this program that Jeff has, he does account for that. Okay, so the overall volume is essentially the same on the 4-day split versus the 5 or 6 day split. Okay, so he takes that into account, and the reason he does is because he knows that research. So I just wanted to make that one remark there about it, and that Jeff does take that into account. So big points for him there. Now, finally here, we're getting into the program itself. Okay, so like I said, it's a 12-week program. The odd weeks, I'm going to go over specifically the 4-day week one. That's what I'm going to show you. The 5 or 6 day one, the principles are exactly the same. The exercises themselves, exercise selection is the same. The only difference is it's spread out over 5 or 6 days. That arm pump day is essentially there as required, that you're going to actually follow it. And the other difference is that it's a lower push-pull type of split on that 5-6 days week one. But again, the exercise selection and principles are essentially the same. So I can go over just the 4 times a week one here. You'll get a good grasp of it, and the fact that the programming here is quite good. I do have a few caveats. I'll go over that in just a second, but that's the one that I'm going to concentrate on. 12 weeks, like I mentioned. All right, and then it actually changes in week 7. Okay, the exercise selection overall is basically saying there's a few different exercises that do change. Okay, but what changes overall in that week 7 is the volume intensity, because you are ramping up overall when it comes to this point. You're getting ready to peak by that 12th week. And in week 8, you're actually given a deload. And the reason it's called that, and he refers to it as a deload in question marks himself, is because while everything overall, the exercise selection is essentially the same, the overall volume does get decreased a little bit in that week, just to give your body a little bit of a break and allow it to adapt to everything it just went through, and to prepare you to then go through those final 3 weeks to peak, so you're able to get a new lift or a new PR, supposedly, in your main lifts, your 3 main lifts, your squat, your bench, and your deadlift. And that's what this program is concentrated around, those big 3 lifts, okay? So let's get into here. The first week, this is what I'm going to show you. Basically, I'm going to show you the day 1 and day 2. Again, because of ethical and copyright reasons, I'm not going to show you the whole thing. I'm not going to show you, honestly, the whole week. It's just unfair, because if you see the entire week, you get pretty much the entire program. In terms of exercise selection and split, all you would have to do then is accumulate for or account for an increase in intensity and volume, which you can do on your own if you wanted to. So that wouldn't be fair to Jeff. So in this first week, let's go by the first day, okay? So it is a full body split here, okay? Day 1, you're starting with back squat. Perfectly fine exercise. He does mention the warm-up sets, okay, which I think is good. Some exercises do need it, some don't. If it's a compound lift, yes, you need warm-up sets. And it's a good thing for him to mention this. 1 working set, reps of 2, percentage 1 RM of 82 to 87 and a half, okay, an RPE of 7. Now, some of you might be thinking, if he's providing a percentage of your 1RM, why does he provide an RPE as well? Now, the reason that he does this, in terms of providing both an RPE for this, is the fact that, again, because it's a range, okay, it's not a specific percentage. All right, so at 82 and a half, 2 reps of that is going to be an RPE of around a 7. It should be, okay, because even at 87 and a half, you're able to get 2 reps of your 1 RM there, okay? You could probably even get up to 4 or 5. Well, 5 is kind of pushing it a little bit at that point, but you still could be pushing at least 4 at that point, okay? So getting 2 at 87 and a half is still not super difficult. That would probably be, honestly, more of an RPE of around 8, maybe even 9, depending on the individual. But by giving you a range now, you know a good way to determine the weight that you're going to be following for this. And he continues with ranges throughout the rest of the program. And I kind of like the way that he did it this way. After you complete that 1 set, you're going into a front squat or a box squat. I personally would choose the box squat. I just don't have the mobility to do a front squat very well. In terms of this way, my mobility, my wrists can't handle it. Also, I can't hold the bar this type of way very well. So personally, I would do the box squat. You might be a little different. You might be great with the front squat. Either way, he gives you the choice. Okay, so that's 3 sets of 8 reps. Don't need a 1 RM for this. You need RPE, though, which he gives at a 7. Perfectly fine. As the weeks go on, the RPE does increase overall. So intensity is increasing. Volume overall does increase as well, depending on the overall exercise itself. In isolation, the overall volume pretty much stays the same. It's the RPE that will increase, which it should be, because you should be trying to do progressive overload. Now we're getting into the other exercises here. Barbell bench press, okay? So that is 4 warm-up sets, and then 1 working set of 4 reps. Again, the overall 1RM percentage is fine. RPE, same sort of thing. That's perfectly fine. I like that. Again, repeats then barbell bench press after that, 2 working sets of reps of 6. So you're doing kind of like a top set, and then you're going down a little bit more to get a little bit more of pump work. Just a little bit, nothing crazy. And then weighted pull-ups. This is one that I honestly have a little caveat for. I'm not a fan of weighted pull-ups. The reason is that a lot of people, most people, I would say honestly, have a hard enough time doing pull-ups, even unweighted, to get the technique right, even up to 10 to 12 reps. Trying to get up to 15 reps, honestly, for most people, forget about it, honestly. Where they're actually good technique, they're not kicking, they're not swinging, or anything like that. They're doing a full range of motion where their arms are at full extension at the bottom, bring themselves all the way up, their legs all the way from their head down to their toes is fully straight the entire time, nothing moves. Most people, honestly, probably will have a hard time getting up to even 15 reps with that. Now, you add in weighted pull-ups, that's just going to exacerbate the problem, honestly. Even at 4 to 6 reps, it's still going to end up causing a lot of you, I think, to do some kicking, some swinging, to bend your legs, your knees, to try to get up there a little bit more. For this reason, I would substitute in a lat pull down. Okay, I think that overall is an overall better exercise. Okay, some of you, I think, can get the pull-ups just fine, and if you think you can with good technique, go for it. But I think overall, for most people, in a practical standpoint, pull-downs is better choice. Okay, now I know there's some people here who might think that weighted pull-ups provides a better stimulus. I even had one of my viewers provide a link to a study that was done showing or suggesting that pull-ups does provide a better stimulus versus lat pull-downs. Now, there's a few problems with that one. It was, first off, the sample size overall was very small. I don't think it was even 20 people, honestly, and even the researchers suggested or even talked about the fact that there's individual characteristics. The data they showed in terms of the stimulus provided wasn't a significant difference between pull-ups and lat pull-downs, and also every exercise they showed in that was limited to 5 reps, okay? So, and the reason they did that is because the researchers knew that in pull-ups, after 5 reps, technique is going to start going out the window with most people. So to provide a fair comparison, you needed to limit everything to 5 reps, including lat pull-down. Now, at a lat pull-down, at 5 reps, you're not going to be getting a ton of stimulus out of it overall. You should be doing more around 12 to 15 reps, maybe even a little bit higher for lat pull-downs. But like I said, most people aren't going to get up to that high rep count in the pull-up. So in that case, lat pull-downs are overall a better choice from a practical standpoint, because you can get a better stimulus overall at a higher volume out of it. You can be more consistent with it in your technique, and you can do progressive overload more consistently with it. That's my opinion. That's what I think. Like I said, if you think you can hit the pull-ups, even weighted ones with good technique for it, go for it. Glute ham raise, that is an amazing exercise. I love that. If your gym has that machine, a glute ham raising machine, consider yourself lucky. Use it. It's a great exercise. Glad that I included it in here. 6 to 8 reps, it's a little bit, maybe a little bit low. But having said that, glute ham raise done properly are actually pretty hard to do. So I can also understand why you put it at 6 to 8. Seated face pulls, all right, 15 to 20 reps, 4 sets, great. Okay, good volume for that, especially to help with that upper back. You can never get too much volume up here in your upper back, honestly. Is there an advantage to having it be a seated face pull? Or seated versus standing or kneeling? Not really. Maybe it can prevent you from doing some rocking back and forth, but if you're doing this with actual good technique, it's not really a matter. On to day 2 here, try to speed up because I've been going on forever here. Deadlift, okay, again, the reps and the percentage for 1RM is perfectly fine. I am a fan of doing the trap bar hex bar deadlift versus conventional sumo deadlift with a bar. Personally, I think you can make better progress with it. I think you're less likely to screw it up technique-wise. And I also think that having the bar, a hex bar, being overall in line with your center of gravity is going to reduce your overall risk for injury when it comes to that lift. Okay, now if you have good technique overall with your deadlift, yes, there is a reduction in that risk of injury, but overall you're still probably better off with a hex or trap bar deadlift, in my opinion. Okay, now barbell overhead press. I'm not a huge fan of that exercise overall. But again, being a power building type of program, you can understand why you put it in there. Okay, if you have good mobility and you don't have any back issues or anything, there's nothing wrong with it. A great alternative is scrape the rack presses, like the one shown by John Meadows. Those are great. That gives you all the benefits while putting less pressure on that shoulder joint and your lower back overall. Okay, Bulgarian split squats. Perfectly good exercise. I think he could have honestly increased the volume in terms of the rep range up to a little bit higher, maybe 10 to 12 or even 12 to 15 for that one. But still overall, not bad. Meadows rows, great exercise, perfectly fine there. And then barbell or easy barbell curl, and then pec fly to end everything for that day. Perfectly fine. Now you can see the overall structure of this. You're starting with compounds, then you're going overall to isolated later on. Perfectly fine way to do it. And the other full body days, day 3 and day 4, follows this overall structure. What you notice, also I will mention this on day 3, is you are repeating back squat, okay, and you're also repeating a barbell bench press. But the difference is that on that day 3, you're going with overall higher rep range, but a lower 1 RM that you're following. Okay, so this is essentially following max effort, dynamic effort type of programming or periodization, pioneered by Louis Simmons at Westside Barbell. The reason that he has it here is because it works, okay? It's an excellent way for developing strength, okay? So that here gives you guys an overall idea of how the program is structured, okay? And then in that week, second week after this, on the even weeks, go over that real quick, okay? Like I said, in the 4-day week is a lower upper, perfectly fine. You're repeating a lot of the same exercises like barbell back squat, a few other things, okay? But again, it's a concentration on hypertrophy in this case. Much more volume overall, well, not much more, but more volume overall, more concentration on isolated tight movements because that is what's going to work well for hypertrophy overall. And the structure, the volume, the intensity, everything, all that stuff is great. I think there are a couple exercises here or there that he can increase overall volume, maybe a little bit. Like the seated cable row here, he just has 10 to 12 reps. I think you can bump that up to 12 to 15 overall. But again, it's fine. The overall volume in terms of per week for that muscle group is still good where it needs to be. Okay, in fact, it's a little high. It's at 22 if I remember correctly. So you don't necessarily need to bump up that rep range if you don't need to. Okay, again, here he has weighted pull-ups. Again, not a huge fan, but again, it's not the biggest deal in the world. All right, so that gives you guys an idea of the program itself. I think it's programmed very well. There's a few things that I personally would change, a few exercises I'm not honestly a huge fan with that I would substitute out. He does provide that substitution list for you, okay, so you can make those substitutions if you need to. But overall, I am a fan of this program. I think it is going to help you with making progress. It's done in a way that is not going to get you injured unless you're doing something stupid or not doing good technique, which he provides demonstrations all for and good demonstrations for it. So overall, guys, I do like this program, okay? And I definitely would recommend it, okay? I'm giving it a final score of 9.5 out of 10, okay? Great program. Exercise substitution is great that he has that. Should have explained how to, but not the biggest deal in the world. But the other main thing here is that a few exercises that I'm not honestly enough fan with, that I was substitute out of, and then overall volume, I think, is good, overall volume, but the individual volume for some exercises could be changed a little bit, honestly. But other than that, I'm kind of nitpicking here and there. So if you wanted to pick this one up, if you followed his phase 1 and now you want to continue on to phase 2, I think it'll be a great choice for you to do that, and then that way it can help prepare you for phase 3, which is an overall one to help you peak for your main lifts after that. So definitely give it a try, guys. Definitely give it a recommendation from me. All right, I hope you found this review helpful. It was a long one. I feel like I've been talking forever. If some of you are still here after this, Godspeed, all right, honestly. So I really appreciate it. I really do. All right, guys, I hope, again, you enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next week.